On TSB Talk Sport and Business, I'm Neil Oja, and as we always tell you that, listen, we take care of your sports knowledge, we take care of what's happening in the world of business, but also we dive deep and talk about you as a person, कि आपके लिए good things and bad things kya hai. Yesterday we looked into one little aspect of financial investments where we spoke about gold rates that have dropped down, gone below the $2,000 mark, and is it a good time to invest in gold? Some say yes, some say hey, just keep it at 5%, उससे ज़्यादा मत बढ़ो आगे, gold को अपना सारा तन मन धन मत दे दिया करो. But there are a few things that might get expensive in the year to come. And how do you budget all of those? To talk about that, we've been joined by Abhishek Datta. He's a financial expert. Always, we look up to him for our personal advices also. Abhishek, welcome to TSB yet again.
Thank you. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you, Abhishek. Now, you know, in this year, whenever the year begins, पहला महीना तो ऐसे ही चले जाता है. You know, Jan में बहुत ऐसा hype होता है कि I will save a lot of money, I'll go to the gym and get fit, I will eat clean. But nothing goes as per your plan. Feb is when reality strikes and then you realize कि अरे यार ये तो गड़बड़ हो गई. अब बाकी के 10 महीने जो हैं, 10.5 महीने जो हैं साल के, उसको कैसे एडजस्ट करना है. शायद इसीलिए फाइनेंशियल ईयर जो है वो मार्च के बाद ही शुरू होता है कि सब जो जुगाड़ करना है कर लो, उसके बाद शुरू करेंगे.
So, you know, two things don't work in life, in my experience. One, New Year's resolutions. The second is budgeting.
Right.
Budgeting is something that we all like to do because, you know, it makes us feel good, you know, opening that Excel, plugging in those numbers, having 100 categories and all that. It's nice, but it doesn't work because budgets are backward looking.
Okay.
It's based on your experience of how much you have been spending.
Right.
But nobody's ever gotten rich by saving money on groceries, or like a lot of financial experts will tell you, saving, don't buy coffee outside and drink coffee at home. It'll save you a certain amount of money every day. Nobody's ever gotten rich in that manner.
Can I say one thing, and this is purely out of our personal experience, Abhishek. This man, he practices what he preaches, and I can tell you why. उन्होंने अभी भी बोला ना कि जो बोलते हैं कि बाहर की कॉफी मत पियो, घर की कॉफी पियो. मैं 2 बार इनको बाहर के कॉफी शॉप्स में मिला हूँ. यानी कि he's practicing what he's preaching.
No, I love coffee.
There you go. See.
So that's another thing, right? I love coffee. And I love trying out new types of coffee.
Right.
So I will go and spend money on things I love.
Makes sense.
So, you know, budgeting is great, but you should keep it simple. You should keep your fixed costs, your, you know, variable costs, things like you spend on, you know, what you like. But the most important spending is the guilt-free spending that you do. And when I spend on coffee, unless it's an exorbitant, like I paid recently about 80 dirhams for a coffee. Now that hurt.
Okay.
Because the coffee wasn't even that good, you know.
Achha, definitely it'll hurt.
Right. But I don't regret it as much because I tried it and I know I'll never try it again.
Makes sense.
If you can spend money in the correct manner, you will end up spending more on things you like.
Right.
Rather than things you think you need. For example, and I always give this example because this phenomenon baffles the hell out of me. The new iPhone. People lining up for a device that is not a rare commodity. No, you know, and you know it's going to be available 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years down the line, and they line up overnight waiting to be the first ones to buy. That tells me that psychologically they are not in the right place, and which is why they end up spending on things that they think they need rather than what they actually probably want.
Wow.
And then they go around telling people that, oh, you know, Dubai is getting expensive, and then we have these conversations. But do you really need that new iPhone? Like I have 2 cars now which are both 5 years old. And they have everything I need. They have a sunroof, they have Apple CarPlay, they have, you know, radars, automatic braking, etc., etc. You know, all the frills that come with new cars as well. But if I sold my car today, I would probably get 100,000 dirhams.
Right.
But that same car would cost me 330,000 dirhams.
Makes sense.
So what is my incremental benefit for spending 230,000 dirhams extra?
Fair point.
And nobody will be able to answer that logically. It's a brand new car.
It's an emotional decision more than a logical decision. Hai na?
Correct. But what is the total cost of ownership now? The more expensive the car, the more is the insurance.
True.
Right? And the more is the depreciation. So as soon as the car's out of the showroom,
you lost money itself.
You lost 20%.
Right.
So, but if I sold an investment to someone and someone says, you know, if the markets go down, it's down 10%. Oh, it's so bad, you know, because you can see that 10-20% every day.
Right.
Because the stock market and the regulators want you to see the value of your investments on a mark-to-market basis.
True.
But because you can't see the money you're losing on your car or anything else that you're buying, or on your new iPhone for that matter, you know, people kind of, you know, and we like it like that. We like those hidden costs because we can't see it.
Because we don't see it. I mean, it does tend to become like an easier blow as compared to a number that goes down on your screens every
Correct.
time that you see. Like beach mein maine, when the ETF of Bitcoin was coming through and there were conversations, so I did allocate some amount. मैंने निकाल के थोड़े से Bitcoin में डाल दिया. I said, ETF आएगा ऊपर जाएगा, basic logic sense,
right.
And it did go up a bit, and then it suddenly crashed. Came down tumbling, and I could see the number going down, and I was like, koi nahi, ye aayega, upar aayega. I kept patience, and a couple of my friends were like, dude, wrong timing, Bitcoin halving hone wala hai, and you will probably lose further. I said, this is not something that I'm speculatively putting in. This is like a long-term thing. Ye jayega upar. In fact, when it fell down, I allocated more in it, like by the dip wala concept. And now if you see, it's running at 51, 52.
Right.
And I'm like, aa gaya bhai, paisa vasool ho gaya.
See, but that's also, you've now extrapolated that experience and said that you made the right call. If it went the other way, it would be in the exact opposite.
It would be like a risk that you take,
see,
right?
You believed in it. And you should always do things that you believe are right. No matter what anyone does. Whatever I tell you. Maybe because, and I tell people this, you ask me about Bitcoin, I'll tell you first thing that I don't understand it as much.
Absolutely.
So if you do it at your own risk.
Right.
I also allocated some money, but it was just risk capital that I am okay to lose.
That's the same thing. You are absolutely right. It's not like a big sum that, I've put in. It's like a small thing that you'd want to play around with. Try to see ke kya hai, kaise hai. Like if you don't get into what, in the pool, you wouldn't know how cold or warm the water is.
Right.
But this is where, like you mentioned, if you know and understand the market, you get in. But there are a few things that which a person who's investing or not investing, saving or not saving, will still incur a certain amount of cost, and that is your rents. ठीक है, your Salik tolls, Salik is increasing, there are more Saliks coming in. अभी तो पता चल रहा है कि दुबई मॉल में जाने के लिए भी Salik लगने वाला है, ठीक है. So these are a set of costs that will always be associated with anyone who's living in the country. Now, how does one play around with those numbers? Like you said, कि budgeting करनी है is based on your experience of the previous year. But how does one then do it based on there could be a chance of the rents going up?
Okay. So, let's talk about Salik first. It's how much is a liter of petrol. Now, if you want to avoid Salik, and I see a lot of people do that. What is money? We say time is money.
Right.
And Salik saves you, using the Sheikh Zayed road, saves you time.
A lot of time.
And it saves you probably fuel as well, because, if you're traveling a longer distance. So, you have to do that analysis and see that if you're adding 10 kilometers to your drive, which will cost you a liter of petrol,
it's the same thing.
Yeah, and you have one more Salik gate, then you might as well just pay for the Salik gate and save on time.
Right.
So, I'm of the opinion that convenience and saving time outweighs any other cost. So if I can save time, then I would definitely do that, because I know that every time driving is probably one of the most unproductive things we do, especially when we do it at rush hour.
True.
Right? Which is why successful people like to be driven around, because even when they're getting from point A to point B, they're doing something, they're making money probably,
which is so true. I mean, or if nothing else, reading the pink papers.
Correct. So whatever it, even if it is getting a shut eye for that half an hour,
makes sense.
It's worth something more than that Salik or anything else that you're paying. So that's that. Rent, again, but also you have to remember, all of these things are out of your control. What you can control is your mental makeup.
Right.
Of how you look at money. Now, okay, rents are going up, but if you see, there's a survey that says 70% or so of the companies will also increase salaries.
Right.
Now, what do people do usually when they get a higher salary? They start spending more, and they have the upgrade lifestyle. I live in an X apartment, I'm going to live in an X+1 apartment now. Or I'm going to upgrade my car, or I'm going to go for a better holiday this time. I fly economy, I'm going to fly business. All of those are probably unnecessary. And do they really matter? Do you want to take a 3-hour flight in business, or an economy will do? So these calls, if you take and you make those, so write them down. Write down what's most important to you.
Okay.
Your spending habits generally show what is more important to you. If you're spending on your kids, on your health, on bettering yourself every day, that shows that you're someone who's looking to get better at everything that you do, and you want the best for your kids, etc. But that doesn't mean you have to buy them designer clothes.
Makes sense.
Right.
True.
So these are, and it's very important to psychologically prepare yourself that these things are important to me. Convenience is important to me. I'll pay for it. But I don't need a big house. Do you really need that big house with a big garden? Because you'll say, oh, my rent is only, let's say, X amount. But what is the total cost of, owning or renting that house? I know a friend who used to pay 4,000 dirhams of Diva bill just because they had to water the garden every day.
Wow.
And then they decided, we'll put an artificial turf. And then 6 months of the year, you can't even use it because it's so
True.
hot. So you have to make those decisions very smartly. And that's where I think we fail. We fail to make decisions because we are not thinking enough about them.
Abhishek, I love this conversation, and I'll tell you why. We're not talking numbers. Normally, the moment we think about budgets, the moment we think, we have to plan our financial year, and this is not for a businessman, it's for a common man like me or the one who's listening to me. And then I say this with a very, very clear conscience. We normally start thinking numbers that, okay, this is the amount that I'll make in a year. These are my fixed cost. कि मुझे rent तो देना ही है, मुझे मेरे EMIs ये हैं, घर पे इतना भेजना है. Out of which then there are these other costs जिसमें से for my beautification, for my maintenance of my beautiful hair, I need to spend so much. We think numbers, but I love the way you have changed the entire narrative into thinking what you really need and what are your random desires.
Right. So we are impulsive, compulsive consumers.
All of us are.
All the time.
Right.
And we go into a mall, we see something that we like, and we then end up spending something that we never planned for.
Right.
And what do? We use credit cards. So why aren't you looking at your credit card interest? Yes, you're looking at your investment portfolio making 8, 10, 12%. But if you're paying 30% off on your credit card, what's the point?
True.
Don't invest. Pay off the credit card first.
Makes sense.
So all of these, and these are, if you can control your impulses, that's what I'm thinking. Change your psychological makeup. You have an impulse, you want to buy something today? Don't. Write down you want to buy this, go home, sleep over it, come back the next day and think whether you still want that thing as much. If you have even 10% now, then maybe I don't need it, don't go for it. That way you will not have buyer's remorse. I mean, let's be honest. I was talking to someone. He has a daughter who's just started working.
Okay.
And he's like, all she does is goes in, shops.
Okay.
Like probably we'll need a second room for her because the room's full of stuff that she doesn't probably need. But these are, she's just starting out, so she can still learn.
True.
But let's say you're 35, 40, 45 and you're still doing it.
Yeah.
When is that day when you're actually going to realize that you hoard so many things that you don't need?
True.
And that is where, again, stop being impulsive. Make up your mind what is important to you. And that doesn't have to be the beginning of the year. Time is artificial. It doesn't have to be beginning of the year, end of the year. It is any time, every day. Because it's an artificial construct. It limits you. I'll do this in January. Why January? Why not today?
Right, yeah.
Why do you have to wait for January or December or when I get my bonus? No, you do it today. Do whatever you can. Every drop counts.
Makes
People
sense.
think investing is only for the rich. No, invest whatever you have. You want to buy gold? Go ahead and buy gold. Do something.
Right.
Trying to be the ideal investor. When I have X amount, I will invest. When I reach this stage, it never happens.
Never happens, yeah.
I've learned the hard way as well. I didn't invest as much as I was growing up. And now I feel I should have.
Right.
I wasted my 20s, for example, I feel. 30s I did okay, but 20s I could have done more and I could have saved more.
I mean, in retrospect, we always say that, right? Retrospect is always 20/20. You look back and say, Acha, I could have done this, I should have done this. But for anyone, like you say that, if you are in your 30s, and most of us living in here in the UAE, we finish our education and everything in our countries and then work there for a few years and then come here.
Right.
Whatever you've done, वो पुराने पाप को धोना होता है एक तो, फिर घर पे पैसे भेजने होते हैं, ये सारी सोच होती है. But if you are in your mid-30s, early 30s, and now want to start investing because you've been listening to us and saying, hey, Neil talks about investment, Abhishek has come in and he's also talking about it. What are those first few steps that one has to understand कि मुझे investment का जो path है? And I keep bringing up this conversation again and again, Abhishek. Even with you, I've asked you a bunch of times because our listeners change. Every day there's a new person who's joining in. And this is for the one who's listening right now. What is those first few steps towards investment, towards budgeting?
So first of all, budgeting, let's say you control your costs. Don't spend more than you earn.
Okay.
And try and limit your fixed costs to about 60% maximum of what you earn. Because let's be honest, one of the reasons we come here is to save on our income taxes.
Absolutely.
Now, if you're saving 30% income tax, but you're spending that 30%, what's
What are
the
you
point?
saving? True.
So might as well save that 30%. So I'm saying take another 10% and try and save 40%. Keep a rainy day fund. Keep 10-20% aside. You should have at least 6 months buffer. Let's say Tomorrow, God forbid, someone loses their job. They have to find employment. You give yourself that 3 to 6 months buffer, so that you have that rainy day fund around.
Right.
So that you don't have to worry about where you're going to pay rent from or how you're going to pay for groceries. Once you've got that aside, start investing the rest. Talk to your friends. Open a trading account for that matter. Or start even with a simple Indian mutual fund for Indians. Because that is the easiest way to start investing. Do an SIP. It'll get you into the habit of saving. And one thing that is very, very underrated is automating your savings.
Okay.
Whether it's a savings plan globally or it's an SIP in India, automate it. The day your salary hits the account, the next day that money should be gone. So let's say you make 100, 20 goes the second day. So now you've got 80. In your head, you should be saying, I make 80 a month, 20 goes in taxes. This is the only tax that will come back to you though.
That's so true. That is so true.
So automation is very, very underrated. People think, no, I can do active management. I want to buy stocks. Even I don't have enough bandwidth to go through every stock in the market.
True.
Right? You could hear your friends and, follow the trend and do all of that. But the simplest way is to start with mutual funds or ETFs. Automate it every month. And you may not make 50% quickly, but you will make 10, 12% every year. And that compounding effect that it'll have on your portfolio will be phenomenal. And it's a small drop in the ocean because you're doing small amounts every month.
Right.
Make it simple. Keep it simple always. Everything in life you should keep it simple, and including investing. There is no rocket science to it. Good savers become good investors, become rich over time. Unless, of course, you're running a startup and some VC is investing $1 million in you. This is the simplest, easiest way to start, your investing journey. And I think we overcomplicate things. We like to throw around jargon and do stocks and things like that. Look at finfluencers on YouTube. Don't do all of that. Keep it simple. Start somewhere. And then you learn. Take the effort. Read up. There's no shortcuts, unfortunately, but it's also simple.
No, I like the way you explained it. That automation part especially, because the moment we see the whole salary hit our account, we realize कि अच्छा मेरे पास 100 है. But if the 20 is already gone, like it would in India, TDS कटता था salary में से.
Right.
ठीक है, तो tax deduction at source, you don't even get that amount. So if that deduction happens and it starts saving, over a period of time, accumulation happens. And I'm sure that there would be, apps for the tech savvy people कि भाई मुझे तो, कोई CA के पास भी नहीं जाना, कोई financial advisor से भी नहीं पूछना. एक ऐप है, मैंने ऐप को assign कर दिया है, लॉक कर दिया है मेरे अकाउंट के साथ में. It'll get deducted every month. I'm sure that there are such apps
too. There are investment funds, there are platforms that are available. There's a lot of options, but you have to go look for them. But while you're using all the apps, delete all the social media apps from your phone, because that's also what fuels your consumption. Right? Because you end up saying, oh, my friend bought this. And today we get so much, we are bombarded with things that you should buy, Amazon finds, etc., that these are things, I don't have that. Maybe I need it. But you don't probably. You don't need an electric bottle opener for that matter. It's like that. But, people do that. I'm like, we don't need these things. But, social media is constantly pushing content at you that's forcing you to consume at the end of the day. So stay away from social media and, probably read up. And YouTube is a phenomenal resource to learn about simple things about investing. People watch so much Netflix, watch more YouTube, and you will learn so much. It's an open university. You can learn so much on that. I consume YouTube more than I pay for YouTube.
Okay.
Because I do not want to watch ads.
Right.
So I will pay for YouTube. I'm so hell-bent on not watching ads. So which is why, I know that, right? I don't want to waste time on ads. So I'll watch YouTube and pay for that. You will see there's so much content on that it's mind-boggling.
Interesting that you mentioned about YouTube. In fact, it was today in 2005 that YouTube was launched. So yeah, it's just a fitting,
and it's actually worth almost as much as Netflix.
It is, right? And plus, Netflix doesn't pay you to be on Netflix. YouTube does. I mean, if you are consuming content, then if you turn around to become a content creator, there could be another stream of... are you creating content on YouTube, by the way?
No, unfortunately, I should. You should. I should, but I don't. Right? I just don't have the time or the bandwidth at the moment. Don't worry, it's something that I really want to do.
We will talk about this right here. On TSB, if you have a question, you can always send in on 0586861003. We'll share it with Abhishek, get those answers. Abhishek, thank you so much for your time today. And then simplifying the entire jargonized concept of budgeting, saving, investing into simpler things, which basically mean that, listen, you just need to be aware of where you're spending and just that automated allocation of investment is just a winner. Thank you so much, Abhishek.